Today's history lesson is a compelling one because the Mercedes 500e is a car with a serious legacy. Now, when it first hit the streets back in 1991, this V8-powered E-Class was an expensive rare groove car and it sold in tiny numbers. But subsequently, it became the template for an entire generation of high-powered Mercedes products. Cars like the CLS 63 AMG that we're introducing it to here. Now, nearly 2 decades divide these two cars, but the fundamentals are very similar. Both have got big V8 engines delivering serious performance, and both also offer effortless driving experiences. But the big question for today is just how close can the 500e get to its modern equivalent? Now, I'm not going to claim to be a dispassionate observer here because I've always been a huge fan of the W124 generation E-Class. And as the brawniest, the 500e should be the best of the bunch. But it was never that much of a sales success, thanks in large part to a 58 grand price tag. Back in '91, you could buy a BMW M5 for £12,000 less. In return for their considerable investment, buyers got most of the mechanical package of the 500SL stuffed into an E-Class body shell. The star attraction was the 5-litre V8 putting out 326 horsepower. Now, that's not a huge amount by modern standards, but back in the day, only the Lotus Carlton stopped this from being the most powerful saloon car in the world. The car was made for Mercedes by Porsche in Zuffenhausen, and although it looks like a standard 300e, there have been some substantial changes under the skin, including an all-new front section, and the most obvious difference being the extended wheel arches. On the road, it still feels brilliant. The steering is absolutely brimming with feedback. It feels like a completely different car compared to a standard E-Class from the period. Now, the 4-speed automatic transmission is a little bit dull-witted, but once you've wound the engine up, it still feels properly fast. This was the first Mercedes to be fitted as standard with ASR traction control. Now, unfortunately, you can't turn it off, which does rather limit the amount of fun you can have on nice open corners. Driving the CLS, it's clear that there is a very direct lineage between these two cars. Both have got similarly meaty steering, and both are very refined considering the amount of performance on offer. Now, in the last 2 decades, there have been some fairly major changes. This car's absolutely stuffed with tech, everything from a 7-speed gearbox to seats that squeeze you when you start to go fast around corners. There is one crucial difference, though. Despite all the safety gear, the ESP stability control system in the CLS can be turned off. Now, of course, the crucial difference is that the CLS has got a 6.2-litre V8 and 507 horsepower. That's almost 50% more than the 500e has. So how much quicker is it? Well, to find out, we've organised an impromptu drag race. Now, it lost the traffic light Grand Prix, but the 500e is still a brilliant car. It's sold in tiny numbers, and Mercedes never even bothered with a right-hand drive version, but it's still a very important part of the corporate history. And there's a nice circularity here, because the car was inspired, at least in part, by AMG's efforts to tune the W124. And when years later Mercedes bought AMG in-house as its own tuning wing, it was set to work creating similarly brawny versions of modern cars like the CLS. Nearly 2 decades separates these two cars, and the similarities between them are all the proof you need that the recipe was a successful one.